The stars had always been beautiful to Yuna. When she was a child on the green hills of Valar Prime, she would lie in the grass and watch them twinkle. Her mother told her that each star was a home for someone, that the universe was full of friends, waiting to be found. Now, those stars meant nothing but death. Yuna stood on the bridge of the transport ship Gentle Dawn. Her hands gripped the console so hard that her knuckles had turned white. Around her, the crew worked in silence. They had stopped talking hours ago. There was nothing left to say. 3 transport ships drifted in the cold void above the ocean world called Kethfor. The ships were old. They were slow. They were never meant for war. They were meant to carry families to new homes. They were meant to bring hope. Now they carried 12,000 refugees, mostly children, mostly elders. The young and strong had stayed behind to fight. They had told the others to run. They had promised to follow. They never did. Yuna had sent 47 distress signals. She had called for help from the Galactic Coalition. She had begged the nearby systems for aid. She had even tried to contact the merchant guilds, offering everything they had for rescue. No one answered. The Coalition had declared Kethfor a lost sector. The war had spread too far. Resources were thin. Sending military ships to save a few thousand Valari refugees was not worth the cost. That was what the official message said. Yuna had read it 17 times. Each time she hoped the words would change. They never did. Taiho walked up beside her. He was young, younger than Yuna, but his eyes looked old now. He had been a pilot trainee before the war. Now he was her second in command. Not because he was skilled, because everyone else was dead. "Commander," he said quietly, "the engines on the 3rd ship are failing. Hannah says she can keep them running for maybe 6 more hours. Yuna nodded slowly. 6 hours. That was not enough time to reach anywhere safe. It was not enough time to hide. It was not enough time to do anything but wait. And our shields? She asked. Taeho shook his head. Gone. We used the last of the power cells 2 days ago. Yuna closed her eyes. She had known this was coming. She had prepared herself for this moment. But knowing something and feeling it were 2 different things. A soft alarm beeped on the sensor console. Minji, the young officer monitoring the screens, went very still. Her face, already pale, became the color of snow. "Commander," Minji whispered, "I am detecting hyperspace signatures. 12 of them." The bridge fell silent. Even the hum of the machines seemed to fade. Yuna walked to the sensor console and looked at the readings. 12 ships. Large ones. Military ones. For a single heartbeat, she felt hope rise in her chest. Maybe the Coalition had changed their mind. Maybe help had come after all. Then she saw the energy signatures. She saw the weapon configurations. She saw the hull patterns. Krath Dominion. The hope in her chest turned to ice. The Krath were not soldiers. They were not conquerors. They were harvesters. They traveled from system to system, taking what they wanted. Resources, technology, people. The Krath did not keep prisoners. They did not negotiate. They did not show mercy. They simply took. Taiho was at her side again. "What do we do?" Yuna stared at the sensor readings. 12 hunter ships against 3 unarmed transports. There was no fight to be had. There was no clever plan that would save them. The math was simple and cruel, but she was still the commander. These people still looked to her. She had to do something. "Take us down," she said. Taeho blinked. "Down? Into the planet?" Yuna pointed at Kethfor below them. It was an ocean world. No land. Just endless water and violent storms. The atmosphere was breathable but hostile. The seas were deep and dark and cold. "The storms," she said. They will hide us. The Krath sensors will struggle to track us through the electrical interference. Commander, Taiho said carefully, if we enter that atmosphere, we might not be able to leave. Our engines are already failing. We could crash. We could sink. We could die. Yuna finished for him. She turned to face him. Taiho, look at those ships. Tell me what happens if we stay here. Taiho looked at the sensor screen. He looked at the 12 red dots moving closer. He did not answer. At least down there, we have time, Yuna said. At least down there, we have a chance. Even if it is a small one. She turned to face the crew. They were all watching her. Young faces. Scared faces. Faces that trusted her to know what to do. Yuna wished she deserved that trust. All ships, she announced through the communication system, begin atmospheric descent. Take us into the storms. And tell our people to hold on. The 3 transport ships turned toward the dark world below. Their engines groaned and shook. Their hulls creaked under the stress dot above them. The Krath hunter ships slowed. They did not follow. Not yet. They would wait for the storms to pass. They would wait for their prey to surface. They were patient. They had time. As the gentle dawn plunged into the clouds, Yuna stood alone at the window. Lightning flashed around them. The ship trembled like a leaf in a hurricane. She whispered an old prayer. Words her mother had taught her. Words she had not spoken in years. She did not believe in gods anymore, but she had nothing else left. The crash was violent. The ships hit the water like stones thrown by an angry giant. Metal screamed. Glass shattered. People fell and cried and prayed, but they survived. Yuna pulled herself up from the floor of the bridge. Blood ran down her forehead from a small cut, but she ignored it. Around her, the crew was doing the same. Checking themselves, checking each other, counting the living. Status report, she called out. Taiho limped to his console. His leg was hurt, but he did not complain. Gentle Dawn is floating. Emergency systems are working. We have power for now. The other ships? Minji checked her screen with shaking hands. The second ship, Rising Star, is stable. But the third ship? She paused. Her voice cracked. The third ship is sinking, Commander. Yuna's heart dropped. The third ship. The one carrying the most children. She grabbed the communication device. This is Commander Yuna. All able-bodied crew, prepare for rescue operations. We need boats. We need ropes. We need anything that floats. Move now. The next 3 hours were chaos. Taiho led the rescue teams. They pulled people from the sinking ship one by one. Children were passed from hand to hand. Elders were carried on the backs of young crew members. The water was cold. The waves were rough. The storm still raged above them. Hana, the chief engineer, worked without rest. She was a small woman with clever hands and a sharp mind. She had kept the convoy alive for weeks with nothing but scrap metal and hope. Now she kept the boats running. She kept the pumps working. She kept the lights on. By the time the third ship finally disappeared beneath the black water, everyone aboard had been saved. Yuna stood on the deck of the Gentle Dawn and watched the last bubbles rise to the surface. Another ship lost. Another piece of home gone forever, but the people were alive. That was what mattered. Above them, the storm continued to rage. Lightning split the sky. Thunder rolled like the voice of an angry god. The Krath ships were up there somewhere, waiting. Yuna could not see them through the clouds, but she knew they were there. Hunting. Double quotes Commander. Minji's voice came through the communication device. She sounded strange, confused, maybe a little scared. Yuna went back to the bridge. What is it? Minji was staring at her sonar screen. The device was old and simple. It was meant to help avoid underwater rocks and large sea creatures. It was not meant for combat. It was not meant for anything important. But right now, it was showing something impossible. "There is something below us," Minji said. "Something big." Yuna looked at the screen. A large shape sat at the bottom of the sonar display. It was 5 kilometers down. In water that cold and dark, nothing should live. Nothing should move, but the shape was moving. A sea creature? Taiyo asked. Minji shook her head slowly. "The readings say it is made of metal. And it is structured, like a machine, like a building." Yuna felt a chill run down her spine. "That is impossible. There are no settlements on Keth 4, no stations, nothing." "I know," Minji said. "But Commander, look. It is rising." The shape on the sonar was moving upward. Slowly at first, then faster. Whatever it was coming toward them. The crew watched in silence. There was nothing they could do. They had no weapons. They had no power to run. They could only wait and see what would emerge from the deep. Then the water began to glow. It started as a faint light far below. Blue and white. Soft at first, like moonlight through clouds. Then brighter, and brighter, and brighter still. Yuna ran to the window. All around the ship, the black ocean was turning into a sea of light. The glow rose from the depths like a sunrise coming from the wrong direction. And then it broke the surface. Water exploded upward in a massive fountain. Waves crashed against the transport ships. People screamed and held on to whatever they could find. Something emerged from the ocean. It was a ship. A warship. Its hull was black and scarred. White letters were painted on its side, but Yuna did not recognize the language. The ship was smaller than the Krath hunters, but there was something about it. Something that made Yuna's skin crawl. Something that whispered of old power and old violence. The ship floated on the surface like a beast that had just woken from a long sleep. Water poured off its hull. Lights flickered along its surface as systems came back to life. "What is that?" Taiyo whispered. Hannah had come to the bridge. She was staring at the strange ship with wide eyes. "I have seen pictures of this design before. In old history files." "Very old. What is it?" Yuna demanded. Hana swallowed. "It is a human warship." The bridge went silent. Humans. The story said they had disappeared from this part of the galaxy long ago. Some said they had gone extinct. Some said they had retreated to their home system. Some said they had simply lost interest in the rest of the universe. No one had seen a human in over 200 years. "That is impossible," Taiyo said. "Humans are gone." But the ship floated before them, solid and real. And as they watched, a single light turned on near what looked like the command center. Someone was inside. Someone was awake. The cold woke him first. Then the pain. Junho opened his eyes and saw nothing but darkness. His body felt wrong, stiff, frozen. His lungs burned as he tried to breathe. His heart beat slowly, like it had forgotten how to work properly. Then the memories came back. The battle, the fire, the screaming of his crew as the ship was torn apart, the desperate crash into the ocean, the cold water rushing in, the cryopod closing around him like a coffin. He had thought he was dying. Maybe he had. The cryopod hissed and opened. Junho fell forward onto cold metal. He lay there for a long moment, just breathing, just existing, trying to remember how to be alive. Slowly, he pushed himself up. His muscles screamed in protest. His joints cracked and popped. He was old. No, he was not old. He had been young when he went to sleep. But his body felt ancient. Emergency lights glowed red along the corridor. The ship was dark and quiet. No hum of engines. No chatter of crew. No footsteps. Just Silence.Junho made his way to the bridge. The ship was damaged. He could see cracks in the walls, water stains on the floor, 200 years of decay and neglect. But the Resolve was still standing, still floating. Humans built their ships to last. The bridge was empty. The command chair sat alone in the center, waiting for him. Junho lowered himself into it and touched the console. The ship groaned to life. Systems flickered on one by one. Power at 40%. Weapons offline, but functional. Communications damaged, but working. Life support active. And sensors detecting multiple ships on the surface. Junho frowned. He touched the controls and brought up the sensor data. 3 ships floating above him, small, unarmed, civilian design. They were not human ships. The technology was different. The shapes were wrong. Aliens. He had encountered aliens before, during the first expansion war. Some were friends. Some were enemies. He had no way of knowing which these were. Then he detected the other signatures. 12 ships in orbit, large, heavily armed, military, and they were moving toward the smaller ships. Junho understood the situation immediately. He had seen it 100 times during the war. Predator and prey, hunter and hunted, the strong and the weak. He leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. This was not his fight. He did not know these aliens. He did not owe them anything. He had his own mission to complete, his own people to find, his own home to return to. But even as he thought these things, he knew they were lies. A voice crackled through his communication system. It was broken and distorted. The translation software was old and struggled with the alien language. But he understood enough. Please, help us, children. No weapons, please. Junho opened his eyes. He brought up the visual feed from outside the ship. He saw the 3 transports floating on the rough water. He saw the faces pressed against the windows. Small faces. Scared faces. Children looking out at the dark ocean, not knowing what was coming for them. Something twisted in his chest. He had a daughter once, Suji. She had been 7 years old when he left for his patrol mission. He had promised her he would come back. He had promised her he would take her to the mountains. He had promised her so many things. 200 years. She would be long dead by now, along with his wife, along with everyone he had ever known. But these children were alive. Right now. Right here. Junho stood up and walked to the communication console. He punched in the frequency the alien signal was using. This is Captain Park Junho of the United Human Systems vessel Resolve, he said. His voice was rough from 2 centuries of silence. I am receiving your distress signal. Please respond. There was a long pause. Then a voice answered. Female. Young. Scared but trying to hide it. This is Commander Yuna of the Velari refugee convoy. Are you really human? Junho almost smiled. Yes, I am really human. We thought you were all gone. So did I. Junho looked at the sensor readings. The 12 hostile ships were descending through the atmosphere. The storm was clearing. Time was running out. Tell me your situation. Yuna told him everything. The war, the escape, the failing ships, the Krath hunters, the hopeless odds. When she finished, Junho was quiet for a moment. How many of you are there? He asked. 12,000. Mostly children and elders. And the enemy ships? 12. All armed. All killers. Junho looked at his console. His ship was damaged. His reactor was weak. He had no crew, no support, no backup. He was one man in a broken ship against an entire fleet. He should stay hidden. He should let these aliens handle their own problems. He should focus on survival, but Suji's face floated in his mind. Her smile, her laugh, her tiny hand holding his. "I have had worse odds," he said. There was silence on the other end. Then Yuna spoke again. Her voice was confused but hopeful. "You will help us?" Junho began bringing his weapons online. The ship hummed as power flowed to systems that had slept for 2 centuries. "That is what humans do," he said. "We show up when no one else will." The storms cleared slowly. The clouds parted like curtains on a stage. The lightning faded. The thunder went quiet. And in the sudden calm, the Krath hunter ships descended from orbit like metal vultures. Commander Vorik stood on the bridge of his flagship and smiled. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and black eyes that held no warmth. He had been hunting for 3 weeks, chasing these Velari refugees across 2 star systems. Now the chase was over. "Scan the surface," he ordered. His sensor officer obeyed. 3 transport ships floating on the water. No weapons. No shields. 12,000 life signs. Varrik's smile grew wider. 12,000. That was a good harvest. The Velari were weak, but they were useful. Their children made excellent workers. Their elders held knowledge that could be extracted. Nothing would be wasted. "Move in," Vorik commanded. Standard capture formation. The 12 hunter ships dropped lower. Their weapons powered up. Their tractor beams warmed. This would be easy. This would be quick. The Velari had nowhere to run. Then the ocean split open. Vorik watched as a mountain of water exploded upward. Waves crashed outward in all directions. And from the chaos, something rose. A ship, black and scarred and old. Water poured off its hull like tears from an ancient face. "What is that?" Vorik demanded. His sensor officer was silent for a moment. Then his voice came out as a whisper. "Unknown design. Unknown origin. But Commander," the energy readings. Before he could finish, the strange ship opened a communication channel. "This is Captain Park Junho of the United Human Systems vessel Resolve." The voice was calm, steady, almost tired. It was the voice of someone who had seen too much and fought too long. "You are targeting civilians under my protection. I am offering you 1 chance to withdraw." Vorik stared at the view screen. 1 ship, 1 small, damaged, ancient ship, against 12 of his best hunters. He laughed. "Human," he said, "I do not know how you survived down there, and I do not care. You are 1 ship. We are 12. Your weapons are 2 centuries old. You have no crew, no support, no hope." He leaned forward. "This is my offer to you. Power down your ship and surrender. I might let you live." There was a pause. Then the human spoke again. "I was hoping you would say no." The Resolve moved. It did not move like a normal ship. It moved like a beast. Fast and sharp and deadly. Before Vorik could give any orders, the human warship was already firing. The first Krath hunter ship exploded before anyone knew what had happened. A railgun round punched through its shields like they were paper. The round traveled through the ship from front to back, leaving a trail of fire and death. The ship broke in half and fell from the sky. Vorik screamed for his fleet to return fire. 12 ships launched missiles. Hundreds of missiles. Enough to destroy a small moon. The Resolve's point defense grid came online. It was old technology. Primitive by modern standards. But it was human technology. And humans had built it during a time of war far more terrible than anything the Krath had ever seen. The missiles died in the air. Laser beams cut through them like sunlight through rain. Explosions filled the sky, but none of them touched the human ship, and the Resolve kept firing. The second hunter ship fell. Then the third. Then the fourth. Varric watched in horror as his fleet was destroyed piece by piece. These were his best ships, his most experienced crews. They had conquered dozens of worlds. They had never lost a battle. Now they were dying like insects that the human moved through them like a ghost. He dodged their attacks. He slipped between their formations. He struck where they were weakest and vanished before they could respond. And his voice came through the communication channel again. You should have withdrawn. The fifth ship exploded. The sixth. The seventh. Vorac's crew was panicking. Officers screamed at each other. Soldiers ran through the corridors. The flagship shook as a Rogan round passed close enough to scratch the hull. Retreat, Vorac finally ordered. All ships retreat. But most of his ships could not retreat. They were already dead. The battle lasted 11 minutes. When it was over, 9 Krath hunter ships floated in pieces on the ocean. Burning wreckage drifted on the waves. Oil spread across the water like black blood. 3 ships remained. They were running as fast as their engines would carry them. Back to orbit. Back to space. Back to anywhere that was away from this nightmare. Varric's flagship was one of them. As he fled, the human's voice followed him one last time. Tell your masters what happened here today. Tell them that a human protected these people. Tell them that if they come back, I will be waiting. Tell them that humanity still remembers how to protect the helpless. Vorac did not respond. He could not. His hands were shaking too hard to touch the controls. On the surface of Keth 4, the Valari refugees watched the battle through their windows. They saw the impossible happen. They saw 12 hunters become 3. They saw fire and death rain from the sky. But not on them. They saw a ghost rise from the ocean and fight for them. Una stood on the bridge of the gentle dawn and watched the last Krath ships disappear into the clouds. Her heart was pounding. Her eyes were wet. She did not know if she was crying from fear or relief or something else entirely. Minji spoke in a quiet voice. Commander, who are these humans? Una shook her head slowly. I do not know, but I think they are exactly what the story said. The Resolve floated on the calm water. Its hull was scarred but unbroken. Its lights glowed steady in the fading daylight. And somewhere inside, a man who had been dead for 200 years remembered what it felt like to be alive. The sun was setting over the ocean of Keth 4. Orange and pink light painted the clouds. The water was calm now. Gentle waves rocked the transport ships like a mother rocking her children to sleep on the deck of the gentle dawn. 12,000 Valari stood in silence. They looked at the black warship floating beside them. Some of them cried. Some of them prayed. Some of them simply stared, unable to believe what they had seen. They had accepted death. They had prepared for the end. And then a ghost from the past had risen from the ocean and saved them all. Una took a small boat across the water to the Resolve. Taiho wanted to come with her, but she told him to stay. This was something she needed to do alone. The human ship was old. She could see that now. The hull was covered in scars from battles fought long ago. The metal was dark and worn. But there was a strength to it, a stubbornness. Like the ship refused to die, no matter how many times the universe tried to kill it. A door opened in the side of the ship. Una climbed inside. The corridors were dark and quiet. Emergency lights glowed red along the floor. The air was cold and smelled of salt and rust. She walked slowly, following the lights toward what she hoped was the bridge. She found him sitting alone in the command chair. Captain Park Junho was smaller than she expected. He was not a giant. He was not a monster. He was just a man, middle-aged by human standards. Tired eyes, gray in his hair, hands that looked strong but gentle. He was looking at something in his palm. A small photograph. Una could not see what it showed. but she could see the way he looked at it, like it was the most precious thing in the universe. "Captain?" she said softly. Junho looked up. His eyes were red. He had been crying, but his face was calm. "Commander Yuna," he said. "Please, come in." Yuna walked closer. She did not know what to say. Thank you seemed too small, too weak. How do you thank someone who gave you back your life? "You saved us," she finally said. 12,000 people, children, families. You saved all of them. Junho shook his head slowly. "I just did what any human would do." "No." Yuna stepped closer. "I have met many species in my life. I have seen what they do when the weak are in danger. Most of them run. Most of them hide. Most of them pretend they did not see." She looked into his eyes. "But you rose from the ocean and fought an entire fleet, alone, for strangers you had never met." Junho was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked back at the photograph in his hand. "Can I show you something?" he asked. Yuna nodded. Junho held up the photograph. It showed two figures. A woman with a kind face and dark hair. A young girl, maybe 7 years old, with a bright smile and curious eyes. "My wife Soyen," Junho said. "And my daughter Suji." Yuna looked at the faces. They seemed so alive. So happy. "They are beautiful," she said. They were. Junho's voice was soft. "I left them 213 years ago. I was supposed to be gone for 6 months. A simple patrol mission. Nothing dangerous." He laughed quietly, but there was no joy in it. "I never saw them again. They lived their lives. They grew old. They died. All while I slept at the bottom of this ocean." Yuna felt her heart break for this man. To lose everything. To wake up in a universe where everyone you loved was dust. "Why did you help us?" she asked. "You could have stayed hidden. You could have waited for us to leave. You could have survived." Junho looked at the photograph one more time. Then he looked at Yuna. "When I saw your ships, I saw 3 transports full of strangers. I did not know you. I did not owe you anything." He paused. "But then I heard the children crying in your distress signal. And I thought about Suji. I thought about how scared she would have been. How much she would have needed someone to help her." He put the photograph away in his pocket. "For 200 years, I dreamed about failing my daughter. About not being there when she needed me. About being unable to protect her." He looked at Yuna with eyes that held centuries of grief. "Today, I got to protect someone. Today, I got to be the father I never had the chance to be." Yuna did not have words. She simply reached out and took his hand. They stood there in silence for a long time. Later, Hana came aboard with her engineering team. The resolve systems were old, but they were well built. With some work, the ship could jump to hyperspace. It could lead the convoy to safety. Minji calculated a course to coalition space. It would take months. The journey would be hard. But for the first time since the war began, the Valari believed they would survive. As the convoy prepared to leave Kethfor, Minji asked Junho what he planned to do next. Would he return to human space? Would he search for what remained of Earth? Junho stood at the viewport and watched the stars appear in the darkening sky. The same stars he had watched 200 years ago. The same stars that had watched him sleep. "I do not know if there is anything left for me to return to," he said. "My family is gone. My world might be gone too. Everything I knew is history now. Then what will you do?" Minji asked. Junho turned away from the stars. He looked at the young Valari officer. He looked at the transport ships floating nearby, filled with families who had been given a second chance. He smiled. It was a small smile, a tired smile, but it was real. "I think I will keep doing what humans do best," he said. Minji tilted her head. "What is that?" Junho walked to his command chair and sat down. His hands rested on the controls of his old, broken, beautiful ship, showing up when no one else will. The convoy jumped to hyperspace. The ocean of Keth-4 grew quiet once more. And somewhere in the stars, a ghost from the past carried 12,000 souls toward a brighter future. The universe had tried to kill them, thought it had failed, because a human refused to look away